here. I'm very confused. I'm very, discombobulated. I was at my sister's, and now I hustled back because I didn't want to upset poor young Eric. And we're here. So there he is. He made it.
Yeah, I
Eric, you
made
made
it.
it.
Well, I
I'm ready
wasn't
to.
quite ready, but because I thought you had canceled, but here we are, and now I'm ready.
I didn't think I'd make it back, but I'll blame my sister for that and her stupid kids. But I made it. We're here. We're queer. Get used to it.
Uncle Andrew.
I have like 11, 12 nieces and nephews. My brother's got 9 kids. So I think it's up to like 13 between him and my
Wow.
sister. Yeah.
Wow.
How are you, young man?
Oh, living the dream. It feels like forever. Did we missed 1 week and then is that all that happened? Feels like a long
Yeah,
time because
it's a long time. Daylight
so
savings,
many
which you don't have.
stories. Oh yeah, which we don't have. No.
Freezing out. Is it my internet? Okay, it's fine. Yeah, you guys don't have daylight savings?
Well, we're always on daylight savings, so we don't have
Okay.
standard. I don't know, bro. I don't really know. I kind
We're
of like it
always
though.
saving the daylight.
Yeah, I kind of like it though. I think what people say. Oh, it was about the farmers or something. I don't really know, but it's like as soon as you get used to the time change, it changes again. So in Arizona, we don't have to deal with it.
That's good. I don't know why it was started. I think it's for farms or something. Probably something to do with communism. But we can jump right into your favorite guy, Jussie, if you'd like.
My favorite
Jump
guy.
right, jump right into Jussie. 150 days in jail, 30 months of felony probation, and what's this? I was hearing he said it was because he's black. He has to serve prison time. Was that a correct quote I heard?
I believe he did say that, but what do you expect from him, right? What else could Jussie possibly say? I mean, if there's one guy who's not gonna let go of the race card, it's obviously Jussie. And his little
Juicy,
outburst,
eh?
his his little outburst about not being suicidal, which was
Mm-hmm.
clearly, in my opinion, just him saying like, "Hey guys, I'm really trying to get back into acting when this is all over. So this is my performance. I'm just showing you a little bit more of what I can do." And the idea that he's telling people that he's not suicidal is absolutely hilarious because we already know that he was capable of committing crimes against himself. So I don't think there's
Yes.
anything stopping him from committing another one against himself. So we shall see, bro. We shall see.
Well, we've got a video of him I can play. I think it's 2 minutes long or something. I was trying to figure out if he said the stuff about it being racist in the courtroom or if he said it after. But I think this will include the part where he says,
And did you
I'm not suicidal.
did you see what some of his family members had to say as well? Is absolutely
No, I
hilarious.
did not.
Dude, it's hilarious. I'm gonna send it to you. Maybe you can get it up after this clip. I mean,
Sure.
it's absolutely hilarious, bro. It's mind-boggling.
I'm fashioning the following sentence, and here's your sentence. I'm sentencing you to 30 months felony probation, and the probation is going to be to this court. You're going to be allowed to travel wherever you want. You do not have to live in the state of Illinois. You can report by phone. I know that if you're going to try to make a living and do some of the things you do, you may have to go to other places in New York and Los Angeles. You can do those things. You will pay restitution to the city of Chicago in the amount of $120,106. You are fined $25,000, which is the maximum fine, and you will spend the first 150 days of your sentence in the Cook County Jail, and that will start today, right here, right now. Mr. Smollett, though the jury found you guilty and I've sentenced you as I have, you have the right to appeal the findings and rulings of the court or ask your sentence be modified. To do those things, you need to file a notice of appeal in writing within 30 days. You may also file a motion to modify your sentence, which would have to be filed in writing within 30 days. Anything not stated in those filings are waived for purposes of appeal. You cannot afford lawyers or transcripts. They would be provided free of charge. Do you have any questions?
No, I would just like to say to Your Honor that I am not suicidal.
Okay.
Okay.
I am not suicidal.
That's what he said too.
Suicidal. I am innocent, and and I am not suicidal.
He's
If
innocent.
I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years, and the fears
Oh my
of the
God.
LGBTQ community. Your Honor, I respect you and I respect the jury, but I did not do this, and I am not suicidal. And if anything happens to me when I go in there, I did not do it to myself, and you must all know that. I respect you, Your Honor. I respect your decision. Jail time. I am not suicidal.
Okay.
Eric, I don't understand. What didn't he do? Like, how could he say I'm innocent? I didn't do this.
Well, dude, this is absolute insanity. Jussie is clearly, like I said, he's just doing his little acting thing. But bro, we all can see that you did this. It just doesn't add up, bro. It didn't add up from the very first day, right? You became the butt of jokes right after this whole thing happened. And I guess what he's going for is just the sort of like the time heals all wound things. I mean, this happened all the way back in 2019. So he's kind of just playing on the fact that maybe the media is still working in his favor and that we don't remember what actually happened. Bro, it didn't add up. Remember, what was it, a couple months ago when we replayed the clip of the like little the comedic
The sketch?
reenactment? Yeah,
Yeah.
the sketch. It's hilarious, bro, because and I think one thing that a lot of people sort of really forget, and I'm not a scientist. I think we all know that, but I'm under the impression that bleach, and I think we had this convo before, that bleach will freeze at a certain low temperature. So in a polar vortex in Chicago, the bleach should have been frozen, which is very strange. And he just thinks that we're all going to forget. But he also thinks that simply because he is black, he can't do any wrong, and he's been taught that probably since he was a young kid. So I guess I don't blame him for that, and I also cannot blame him for at least, and this is what the right gets wrong, I think. The right will constantly apologize when they get too much pressure. Jussie and the left, they will not apologize, bro. They can literally tell you like, "Oh, well, the sky is actually green, grass is orange," and they will roll with that. They do not budge. So kudos to them for that. And this is absolutely hilarious. It's I guess they're maybe about 40 seconds each, but this also shows that his family members, even the
Was that his
grandma who
brother? He
that's his brother, but the
looks a lot like
grandma
him.
who is actually white, I believe, she somehow invokes Putin. I mean, think about that. She invokes Putin in her little speech about why Jussie shouldn't be going to jail. It's absolutely insane. And
This
I mean,
woman?
if you yes, is that a white woman?
I would say so.
And she's still doing the mask theater. But I don't understand how these people have created it's all wrapped up into one, right? The COVID fairy tales, the transgender manipulation of reality, and now this, it's all in their little basket, their little bucket of this completely false reality that they've created, and they are forcing us to live with it. Now, kudos to the judge as well. If you saw some of that footage, that's a little bit harder to find, but he actually rakes Jussie over the coals, which is good to see, especially considering it's in Chicago, where Kim Fox and all of these corrupt individuals, hang their hats. So it's absolutely disgusting. They think that we're stupid. They think that we forgot everything that happened. Because last thing I'll say about this, the Rona, people talk about the Great Reset and are we in it? Is it real? Is it a conspiracy theory? I would almost argue that we've already done the Great Reset. I mean, name three things that happened before 2020. Rona has basically wiped everybody's memory completely clear, so they don't even remember what happened in January of 2020. So I think he's betting on that too. He's like, they don't remember. All we can talk about is Rona and vaccines and mandates, and they don't even remember how absurd the story was that somebody poured bleach and put a noose around his neck, and it was all insane, bro. And the family is playing into this 100% as well. It's creepy.
Well, I think what is going on here when you immediately start a free Jussie campaign, like he's not going to do probably his entire 150 days. It'll be in a nice facility, and he's got probation and $120,000 fine. To say that I'm innocent, He doesn't say I didn't do this. What didn't you do? Like, you're on videotape doing everything. Like, everything is on tape, from your interaction with the cops, from the security camera in the alleyway, the rehearsals on videotape, the guys buying everything is on videotape. So I don't know what he's saying. And then he invokes like 400 years of slavery in the LGBTQ community. Like, he's really just acting to the end. And I think with all this, with this statement of I'm not suicidal, I'm thinking that's just a way to keep his name in the news. 150 days is what? 5 months?
Yeah, give or
30,
take.
60, 90, 120. Yeah, 5 months. This will keep him in the news for a couple weeks. Then his free Jussie plan is supposed to collect money and keep him in the news for longer. And the judge is like, you can go wherever you want if you need to work, but you have to do all this. And you're on federal probation, which means I think you'll get a felony if you break it. And I think he's just trying to keep the act going. Now, there's another video. I'm not sure it's going to be crossover with the same one, but we'll watch that and then we'll listen to what the grandmother had to say.
Your very name has become an adverb for lying. And I cannot imagine what could be worse than that. People talk about situations where somebody's lying and trying to manipulate and maneuver a story, and your name comes up. It's, oh, pulling a Jussie, something like that. That's awful. You're the butt of jokes. Comedians, mainstream talk show hosts, they make jokes about you. They do sketches about you. I can't imagine anything worse than that. Now, this is all self-inflicted. These are things you did to yourself.
Well, I'm glad the judge said that. He probably needs to hear it. He probably has not heard it. He's been sheltered from it. Let's see if this is the grandmother.
I'm Jussie Smollett's grandmother.
A remarkable
and it was a
moment
complete
there, and
frame-up.
we have seen. Let's listen to Grandma.
Black men from being abducted into the prison system. You know it.
Oh my
And you
God.
guys got to do more investigative reporting, more investigation. Okay? Thanks.
Can you
Well,
Grandma
it gets good.
just
Let it go.
believes him.
It's going to get better, though.
His comments after the sentencing, the reiteration, the repeating that he's not suicidal, are you worried about what's going to happen to him in prison? Why do you think he said that?
He just wanted to reassure us. He wanted to reassure us.
So that was for you.
He's innocent, okay? Like so many in prison that shouldn't be there.
Would you mind?
Get the white collar guys, okay, who are really making money, who are really corrupt. We've got to do something about saving our democracy here so that we don't get another Putin. Okay, I love you guys, okay?
So that we don't get another Putin, Eric.
It doesn't make sense.
Sure, put the white collar guys in prison if they've done something wrong, but this has nothing to do with you. And they're still pretending like he didn't do anything wrong. Like, I get that he's your grandson, but he did something wrong. My mother used to say, if I kill somebody, she's turning me in. So,
Well, also though, it's funny to me how her and Jussie, it's like they also think the mask, wearing them, like continuing on with the mask theater, is gonna like score them some points. So like, look, guys, we're still on your team. We still are doing this crazy, playing these weird mask theater games. Like we're towing the line. We're all like we're all in for you. Meanwhile, they're just lying and manipulating people. And it's just sad, bro. Like, you had your, like he said, well, I could have said I was guilty a long time ago. Yeah, bro, you probably, when when you told the cop to turn off his body cam after you had put this little string around your neck, that probably would have been the time for you to say, you know what? All right, you got me. I was I made a bad mistake. I was trying to, get some fame, and I apologize. That's probably what should have happened. But now he's in too deep. He's learned from the establishment left, like his, auntie or whatever, aunt, I don't know, Kamala Harris, who was drafting up that anti-lynching bill, right? He has learned that, like I said, to their credit, they will never admit any wrongdoing. They won't back up even one tiny little step. Even when, like, what's happening in New York right now, like, they've reversed the mandate, so now people can go to Applebee's, but the private sector mandate is still in force. So they just won't. They will never let it go. And they are tag teaming this by putting on the mask and saying, we're obeying you. We still think Rona is very deadly. but we're also, I mean, they're literally living a lie. So on one hand, they're saying Rona is still going to kill you. That's why we're wearing these cloth masks. And on the other hand, they're saying, oh yeah, everything Jussie did was real. He's innocent. I mean, who attacked you then, bro? It was the Nigerian twins, but they did it on their own, even though you said that they were white. I mean, none of it adds up. And I just don't see. I hope that Jussie doesn't come out of his little 5-month sentence and automatically get back on TV, but it feels like he will. It feels like he'll have some weirdo Lifetime documentary or he might be a CNN contributor for all we know. Who knows what's going to happen with this guy?
I'm thinking reality show, but yeah, to claim that you're innocent, I don't know what he could be talking to, what he can be referring to. And it's good, I think, that the judge handed that to him a little bit, because this is a guy who nobody's ever going to say to him, what are you talking about? What could you possibly have done wrong? It's, oh, yes, you're such a victim. Even the people that know he's done something wrong will just be and know the story. They'll just either laugh and walk away, or they'll just be like, no, you're right. White supremacy drove you to do this. Your white grandmother drove you into this. It's it's really stupid is what it is, but I'm glad he was punished for it. Maybe this will actually stop people from doing these things. What's the race car driver's name?
Bubba.
Yeah, except he didn't actually do anything. He just made a ridiculous claim. And there's more important things to talk about, but I think it's good that he was actually given a shakedown like this. Having said that, though, barely any coverage of this if you compare it to Rittenhouse or George Floyd. Yes, I get people died, but this is a person blatantly lying versus the media lying about other people or other situations, which is always what happens with everything else. It's gotten to this point, Eric, and we can transition to Ukraine on this fact, that it seems to me that at least 95%, if not 100, of news stories that are pushed the truth it turns out to be the inverted. It's like they want to, as a point, make you believe things that are lies so that they can lie about anything they want.
Yes.
And you could go with Jussie Smollett, where they tried to lie through their teeth for the first week, or you can go with George Floyd, where they pretend that like there wasn't an autopsy. You can go with the guy who came to kidnap his son and tried to stab his girlfriend and got shot in the back by police. You can go with Kyle Rittenhouse, who they said shot black people and was chasing people down. It could be anything, but it's almost
he crossed state
always
lines. That was the cross state lines was like the whole thing.
I saw a good meme of borders that progressives care about, and it's like the Kenosha County border and the Ukrainian border and maybe something else, but it was pretty funny. But pretty much everything the mainstream media does lock and step, it turned out to be a lie. And this is why I'm claiming I was the first person in Canada. I'm pretty confident that I was the first person in Canada, the first person commentating on things to say that the whole Ukrainian narrative is not what it seems to be. As soon as everybody starts changing, mainstream conservatives, Democrats, Republicans, and liberals all start changing their profiles to a flag. As soon as all the corporate media starts supporting something and saying this is the greatest thing, that's how you know right away that something is about to drop, and it's going to be majority a lie to benefit the progressive or Democrat cabal movement. So I was saying from the beginning, because, history exists. Last year, Ukraine was the place where the Bidens are funneling money through, and they fired this guy, and Hunter Biden's getting paid by Burisma, and he's not qualified. This year, Ukraine's the best place ever. Their president's a badass. They've never done anything wrong. They're not crooked at all. So all you have to do is remember. And to your credit, when you're saying they just hope that you forget everything the last 2 years, that's exactly what they did with this. Forget about all the stuff with the Bidens in Ukraine. Forget about Burisma. Forget about their bombing of this area and their conflict with Russia that goes back like 1,000 years, whether they're under a different name or not. I smelt this right away. I said there's no need to come out for either side because Russia's obviously always going to be Russia. They're always going to want to invade places. They're always going to want their territories back. They're always going to try to expand and do these slimy little things. If you look into Russia, not good, right? Look into Ukraine, it's not good either. They've been bombing people for 8 years because they're Russian supporters or they speak Russian, and because, it's the way for the U.S. to fight a proxy war. If you look back at this old video of Lindsey Graham and who's the guy who's dead? Not John Kerry.
John Lewis? No,
No.
the like Voting Rights Act. Who are you talking about?
His daughter was on The View.
Oh, McCain.
John McCain and Lindsey Graham in Ukraine, telling them that we're going to give you all the support you need. And this is about bombing Russia. This isn't recently, because John McCain died and he was alive in this clip, obviously. They're saying, we'll give you anything you need. We're going to go back to Washington to convince them that this is the fight to fight. You're going to win this war. And this is years ago about bombing, the Donetsk and these two regions that are on the border with Russia that have so many Russian-speaking people. So I feel like I was the first person to openly say this while everybody was saying I stand with Ukraine and this guy's a badass and the ghost of Kiev and all these fake stories. And now it turns out where we are, and we'll get to the sort of stuff I'm talking about. First thing is this CBS poll. So obviously it's going to be left leaning, and they can't hide it. 54% disapprove of Biden's handling of Russia and Ukraine. 62%, of course, disagree with his use of his shit economy, I'll say, and his inflation. It's just there. It's just going to happen. We're just going to keep printing money, and therefore inflation's natural. More than 2/3 of those polled are disapproving of it. Now, this stupid narrative, Eric, of it's because of the gas price, or the gas prices are because of Putin, couldn't be further from the truth. Now, if every country gets together and says we're not buying Russian gas, of course that's going to be detrimental to Russia. But for the United States or Canada to say that cutting off the cutting off the Russian oil supply is going to raise your gas prices makes zero sense. It's 3% of what America imports in oil. It shouldn't make a dent any more than a couple cents, because they spend way more money elsewhere. And on top of that, the amount that America spends on Russian oil is less than 1% of their GDP. So it's not going to hurt them either. The people that can hurt them are the European countries that are going to take money away from them en masse. But to say that Putin is causing a gas hike in America is insane. And the fact that how they keep going around saying, are you willing to pay a little bit more at the pump just to stick it to Putin? Everybody's like, yes, of course. That doesn't make sense either. It's not going to put a dent in their economy. And then Canada comes out and says, oh, we're going to ban all oil and petroleum imports from Russia as well. Oh, it turns out we haven't bought any from them since 2019. And in 2019, it was only $500 million, a lot of money to a regular person, but on a government scale, that's nothing. And we buy much, much more, like $4 billion from Saudi Arabia. So now we got to start tossing around this, this political litmus test of which countries are okay to buy from. Okay, you don't want to buy from Russia because you don't like how they, invade Georgia or they invade Ukraine. That's fine. But Saudi Arabia, you let me know their human rights record. You let me know how their bombing in Yemen is going and their spreading of a political violent Islam is going. So we're all supposed to say ban Russia from everything. They can't watch Netflix. They can't eat McDonald's, all this and that. But Saudi Arabia is fine. China's definitely fine. I don't know. The U.S. is going to get oil from Venezuela now. So what's next? We're going to start importing like Cuban goat meat or something. I don't know, Eric. It's gotten to this point where the corporations are really running things. And this is what I think people mean when they talk about the social credit score. It's not a real score. It's what are you speaking out against, or what are you agreeing with? If you're not agreeing with, at the very least, or neutral and not saying anything pro-Russian, then you can live your life. But as soon as you support Russia, your Netflix account could be canceled. If you were a person of notable notoriety and you tweeted out, I support Russia and the Russian people, not even Putin, I wouldn't be surprised if Netflix is like, we're not going to let you have an account. PayPal's not going to let you have an account. All of this. And that's what I think people mean with the social credit score. It's just a bunch of multinational corporations getting together and, bullying people into doing stuff. And that comes along with the World Economic Forum as well.
Well, first of all, let's just to go back to one of your earlier points. I'm not fully convinced, obviously, that there's a bunch of Americans willing to tell a CNN reporter that they want to pay higher gas prices to stick it to Putin. Of course, the CNN correspondent can just say that while you're at the gas station, but we don't have any footage of you getting even one person that said that. Like, where's that soundbite? Can we at least hear that soundbite? Now, maybe I missed it, right? Did it happen and I happened to miss
Savannah
it?
Hernandez got a couple white girls to say on camera that said, "Yeah, it's worth it. This is what happens when it's in a war." And one girl says that it's worth it to have a socially liberal president who's willing to stand up for things. So they think that they're doing the right thing. These
And
two out of
well, they've been
20 people.
they've been completely tricked. I think I did see that video, right? Because it's like 2 or 3 white girls, and we're talking like college girls. They seem like really quite young, sandwiched in between all the like hood guys, the black guys with the tattoos standing outside, pumping gas, and like, no, man, I rock with Trump. You know what I mean? Like that, it's just hilarious how deeply that brainwashing goes, because those same women who would claim to be fighting for the oppressed black minorities wouldn't even talk to the guy at the gas station. And if what would that same white girl do who told Sav, "Oh yeah, it's worth it to pay more because because Colbert says I need to have a clean conscience," or the Democrats on TV say, what would that white girl say to the guy putting $5 a gallon gas into his car? What would, if that guy turned around and said, "You know what, I'm voting for Trump 2024," what would that little white girl's head do? And secondly, to another one of your points, it's clear that the corporations run everything, right? I mean, we're at the point where, for better or for worse, actually for much worse, this is an awful thing, we are governed by, for all intents and purposes, the pharmaceutical industry. And it's been like that for far longer than I'd probably like to admit. But I didn't understand it. I didn't realize it until, a year or so ago, where everything has to go through these corporations, right? So right now we just happen to be dealing with the Pfizer stuff and that. But before, I mean, yeah, Disney, right? Disney they own ESPN, and they're going to kick off a correspondent who doesn't agree with their weirdo leftist thing. And now Disney hates or Disney didn't come out, they didn't jump out the window and immediately come after Ron DeSantis because of this anti-grooming bill. So the corporations, most notably the farm mafia, as I like to call them, have clearly been in control for far too long. Joe Biden is quite obviously an empty suit. I mean, even to take it back to New York and California, Eric Adams is, well, the private sector. So you can go eat at Applebee's now. That's safe, but you still can't play basketball, Kyrie, because you have to get the shot. And he literally said that. He's at a press conference, I think it was either this morning or yesterday, and some guy heckles him from the crowd like, these mandates don't make any sense. And he's like, well, if Kyrie would just get the shot, then he could play. It's like, dude, that's obviously not your decision. You were going to bat for a pharmaceutical, thugs, which de Blasio went even a little bit harder, right? Like, I mean, de Blasio's up there eating his French fries and Shake Shack. And it's like, dude, those are the companies that are clearly in control. It has nothing to do with Joe. Well, it does have something to do with Joe Biden, but Donald Trump, for better or for worse, could at least stand up to those corporations and say, no, we're not going to do it that way. Joe Biden is like, well, okay, like, well, people of color, so he doesn't know what's going on. We're being quite literally controlled by this pharmaceutical industry and a handful of other corporations that have more power than the government could ever hope to, right? I mean, we can do trucker convoys and drive all the way to DC and circle the Beltway, but it's still the corporations that are going to have the final say. And on top of all that, they are too big to fail, right? These are the same sort of corporations that we saw that got bailed out in 2008. So no matter what they do, they are going to get bailed out of our tax dollars. Meanwhile, they are going to back us into these weird corners to the point where everybody has to do stuff that they don't want to do. And it's an absolute mess. And unfortunately, there's no end in sight, because we're not going to be able to vote our way out of this. Anybody who thinks who thinks like, well, yeah, the GOP and the right wing and we're going to come out and vote in numbers is unfortunately a little bit behind the times, because these votes, and I wish I was wrong, maybe I am wrong, but these votes just don't matter, bro. Like if they can take control of the presidential election, quite literally the most important election probably in the world, the president of the United States is the leader of the free world, and if they can get over on that, they can get over on anything. So we can watch Glenn Youngkin out in Virginia win, and people think we're going in the right direction, but I don't believe any of that. I think I just swallowed the huge black pill. I don't know if the black pill comes before or after the clown pill, but I haven't been convinced at this point that any of that stuff is real and that we're going to be able to change by simply voting. I think something a little bit more drastic is going to have to happen, unfortunately. And if I mentioned what might have to happen, we would certainly be taken off of this stream.
Well, who knows what the rules are on YouTube regarding Ukraine right now, but it reminds me of how there would just be these blatant lies against Trump, and even people who weren't for Trump would have to be like, listen, this isn't exactly true. Even though I don't like Trump, you can't just go out and say anything. So even for most people who don't care about Russia, like myself, I'm not going to bat for Putin ever, except for when he's shirtless in the wild, I guess. But it gets to a stupid point where it's just like, I feel like I'm being forced to choose between Iran and Iraq, you know what I mean? Or something to that regard, where it's two countries that are corrupt on the other side of the planet that have nothing to do with my day-to-day life. Their militaries aren't a threat to us, anything like that. And then you put up this actor in Zelensky, the president of the Ukraine, and all of a sudden we're supposed to praise him, these fake quotes, and he's dancing topless and stuff like that on a comedy show about becoming the president. And then we get to this other thing where Facebook's allowing praise of neo-Nazi Ukrainian battalions if it fights Russian invasion. So there's groups in the Ukraine that go back to World War II, actual Nazis, and hopefully this doesn't get us banned. I don't know if they've come up with rules yet. The Azov battalion, swastikas, that sun logo that they have, that the UN or the NATO accidentally tweeted out. One of our politicians actually tweeted out some of their propaganda, which was just a picture of a bunch of women, and they had the logo on their uniforms. So they have actual white supremacist groups, and you can see neo-Nazi sympathies in this Intercept article, so it's fairly legitimate. I went searching through a bunch. Began as a volunteer anti-Russia militia before formally joining the Ukrainian National Guard in 2014. So what happened when they started bombing these Russian-speaking territories is they decided whether or not they wanted to include these really fringe, like, we're not just talking about like how when people say things in North America are white supremacists, actual white supremacists who date back, decades.
And that's an issue too, though, right? That's an issue too, is because they've watered down these terms to where nobody can believe what they're saying anymore. Like me or you could have, 6 weeks ago would have been considered white supremacist. You know what I mean? But now when you actually are confronted with a real one, it's a classic case of the boy who cried wolf. You can't trust any of it.
Exactly. And these were trained by Western forces. And it says, though in recent years it has downplayed neo-Nazi sympathies, the group's affinities are not subtle. Azov soldiers march and train wearing uniform boots, bearing icons of the Third Reich. Its leadership is reportedly courted American alt-right and neo-Nazi elements. And in 2010, battalion's first commander and former Ukrainian parliamentarian, Andrei Boletsky, stated Ukraine's national purpose was to lead the white races world in the final crusade. I'll partition here so people can't clip this and say that I'm saying this myself. They are saying it is against Semite Lev Untermenschen subhumans. So some really vile stuff. And Ezra Levant was even talking last week about how he's never met a white supremacist in Canada. In all his time and all his travel in the United States, he's never actually met one. He has relatives that are from Ukraine. So he's not just like spouting propaganda. Like he has some sympathy towards the Ukrainian people. And he came out on a show and said these are actual white supremacists. And of course they are. There's lots of history here. And that's why I was saying Lindsey Graham and what's his face again? I forget his name.
John McCain.
John McCain go over there and say we're going to do anything. And that's the same year, I believe they said 2014 there it is. That's when they started bombing this region. And then they decide to bring in anybody they can, including neo-Nazi groups. They're saying everybody can come in and I don't know if it's everybody, but they're saying all these groups can come in and we'll allow you to keep your militia, which is a neo-Nazi militia. We'll allow you to do this. And you can fight with us as long as it's against Russia. So now Facebook is taking this stance where you're allowed to praise them. It's temporarily allowing billions of users to praise the Azov Battalion, a neo-Nazi group previously banned from being freely discussed under the company's dangerous individuals and organizations policy. So all of a sudden, because they're fighting Russia, this neo-Nazi group is not a problem for Facebook. And I've also been hearing things, Eric, I don't know if you have, that Al-Qaeda has come to Ukraine to help fight. Now, this story is much less credible.
No, I have not heard that. That's news. That's news to me.
So everybody knows about this Azov Battalion, and they have a long history. But people are reporting about extremist Syrian groups coming and fighting on the side of the Ukrainians.
Okay.
Now, I've seen a lot of this stuff.
Hang on.
Go ahead.
Before we get to the Syrian stuff. Okay, so for the past at least 5 years, we've heard nothing but Nazi comparisons about anybody who would dare step out of the leftist line. But now when they have the opportunity to actually take a stand against a neo-Nazi, they want no part of it. In fact, you are allowed to praise this sect of people. And as Facebook is allowing you to partner up with neo-Nazis, as Facebook is allowing you to incite violence towards a certain group of people, Facebook has also come out with a new feature that will remove, quote, misinformation before it even gets posted. So I think in the same way that we saw the Rona hysteria, the Rona mandates, the requirements had nothing to do with health or safety. It's the very same thing that we're seeing with this, is that this has nothing to do with supporting Ukraine. This is all about just falling in line with the make-believe narrative that this establishment has propped up and they want you to believe. So it's all fake, and that's all I just wanted to say. It's weird that Facebook would at the same time allow you to call for violence against a certain group of people. They're also introducing a new feature that is going to remove misinformation. Also, it wasn't that long ago that they were forced to admit that the fact checks were actually opinions. So I don't even understand how we're still playing this game. But let's move on to this Syrian, or is it Syrian? I don't even know. That's news to me. So
Yeah,
I just had to say that.
So I read this around Twitter, and I've been looking for news articles. Most of them seem to be coming from this Al Mayadeen Net English version. I'm not exactly sure, but this is what it is. But this is where it's all coming from. So this could be true. This could not be true. I've seen some credible people say it's true, but again, I haven't found any articles that weren't just copies of this or citing this. But basically, it's saying that 450 Arab and foreign nationals have arrived in Ukraine to fight Russian forces, and they come from the rebranded version of al-Nusra, which is Al-Qaeda, and they're coming across to fight against Russia. And this says relatives of extremists that have arrived in Ukraine told Sputnik that senior fighters have arrived. If true, then that means you've got neo-Nazis and Al-Qaeda fighting with you. Around 300 of these fighters, it says, are Syrian nationals that are originally from the Idlib and Aleppo countrysides, while 150 others are Belgian, French, Chinese, Moroccan, Tunisian, Chechen, and British nationals, saying that fighters that hail from Syria will receive around 1,200 to 1,500, but had no knowledge what the foreign nationals were going to be paid. So, and there's also been claims that thousands, 16,000 is the number they say here. Other numbers, 20,000, 10,000. They're going to have a bunch of foreign fighters. And I was watching a video on the Rebel live stream the other day with Lewis Brackpool, showed out Lewis. And there was 3 British guys who went to the Ukrainian consulate and said they wanted to sign up to fight in Ukraine. And there was this big bald guy. He's really well put together. nice clothes and everything, and they rejected him. He's no prior military experience. They rejected him and said he's a liability. So he drove to Poland and or flew to Poland so that he could give supplies at the Ukrainian border. Really wants to help. And it's just some people are so brainwashed that they're willing to go and do this. There's a Canadian sniper that is going to fight for Ukraine, and like maybe he just wants to shoot people. I don't know, but like if you're convinced that this is like the most righteous thing to do, at least read into some of it. At least have some sort of knowledge. It's like, are you going to go like North Korea? North Korea is in a conflict. They're innocent now. I'm gonna like Ukraine's not North Korea, but you know what I mean. You're just gonna go to this country with a clear history that's at best sketchy, and you're gonna be like, I'm fighting for righteousness, Eric Butler.
Yeah, and this is kind of like the meme that we've seen going around for the past week or so. It's like somehow the same people that told you were going to kill grandma if you didn't wear a mask, you know, it was all about I don't want to, maybe not the sanctity of life, but how could you be pro-life if you don't wear a mask? Those very same people are now gearing up for World War III, and they want to go fight, and they don't really want to go fight. They want to, you know, put the flag in their profile picture. So they don't really want to do it, but they are still sort of egging on this conflict and saying like, well, how dare you? And it's the same thing though. It actually makes perfect sense because those are the same people that were drinking the Russian Kool-Aid, the Hillary Russian Kool-Aid from 2015. So of course, like, why not? Why can't we just go back to the Russian well and blame everything on Russia all over again? We've already seen that it works, so let's just run it back. And that's basically what they're doing here. And there's a couple other things that they throw in here and there, just to sort of, you know, pretend that this stuff is real. But it's a brainwashing technique, and unfortunately, it's worked. Now, I also think that we saw basically everything we've seen is built to erase your memory from the last thing, right? So remember when it was all about Russia, they dropped Russia like a hot potato, pivoted to Ukraine, and said that we have to impeach Trump about that. And then we did Rona for 2 years. They dropped Rona like a hot potato, and now said, okay, well, we're back on Ukraine and Russia. And it's like, dude, do nobody even remembers what was happening a week ago, and we just keep on getting tricked into believing the new narrative. I can't imagine this is going to really last that long. Are we going to just run it back? And now they're saying that there's an Omicron subvariant, so that might come back. Who knows what's going to happen in April? There's going to be a resurgence, and watch, California and New York are going to go back and start doing mandates all over again. And it's really quite sad, because there was another meme I saw that said, well, if you want to be sad, look at your camera roll from December 2019. And that's true, because there was a time where nobody knew about this Rona stuff. And like I said, I think the Great Reset, you know, so we argue about if it's real or if it's a conspiracy, but it basically already happened, bro. Like, how many? I was watching one of my old YouTube videos because I didn't buy the Rona stuff from the very beginning, right? From March 20th, 2020, when it all shut down. I was like, this doesn't really add up. Think about all the migrant caravans. Think about Harvey Weinstein. Think about Jeffrey Epstein. Think about all this weird stuff that was happening before Rona. And then Rona just changes the whole world, and people can't even remember what happened in 2019 at all. So now we're in this. They've tricked you into thinking that the only thing happening, the only thing that can possibly be happening is what we're telling you in this particular moment right now. And if you don't buy it, you will be labeled an extremist. We saw the Gateway Pundit reported recently that the Department of Homeland Security is once again warning people about extremism threats because they don't buy into the narratives that are being set forth. And that's going to go on indefinitely because they've all credibility. So you have people on the left now. Admittedly, the people on the left don't buy the narratives from a completely different angle, right? So they're saying, well, we don't trust we're going to keep wearing our masks because we don't trust the CDC anymore. Meanwhile, the people on the right or the common sense people in the middle haven't trusted the CDC forever. So nobody trusts anybody, albeit from different perspectives. And here we are, just in this weird purgatory of where, well, you couldn't leave your house last year because it was deadly and you were going to die because the air will get you. And now you can't leave your house because you can't afford to put $6 a gallon gas in your car, and it's just never going to end. I say we should probably take some bets on what we're going to deal with next month. Like, what could it be?
We finally got an unmasking date here. It's 8 days from now.
Oh, okay.
I see the people still wearing their masks in their car. It's like, so in 8 days, it's going to be safe, though. In 8 days, we'll be safe. We did see a father and his daughter not wearing a mask in Walmart yesterday, and a mother and her son not wearing a mask yesterday. But then again, I did see people double masked still. Saw somebody in the Taco Bell parking lot wearing a mask in their car up to their eyelids. It had to have been. It was like from here down to here, like this mask. It was like two were sewn together. So I'm interested to see in exactly 8 days who's still gonna be wearing their mask. And our vaccine passport got dropped at the beginning of this month, and reporter David Menzies went to the Toronto Zoo, which is taxpayer funded, and for some reason, not for some reason, they said that they need the vaccine passport to protect against animals. And when they asked if any animals had died, they said no, but there have been some in the States, which means people said this just so it could be a news story and nobody ever actually died. So they're
But
still allowed to
unfortunately,
have
though,
they're still allowed to have these mandates here if they want to for some reason.
But unfortunately, in that 8 days when the mask thing is over, those are the very same people who aren't gonna. Anybody who hasn't got hip to it yet isn't gonna. Unfortunately, it's like they follow the government every single step of the way until it contradicts their, like, you've been so scared, you've been whipped into this frenzy, and you trusted the government the whole way, and now the government says, okay, well, it's not so bad, you can go ahead and take the mask off. But those are the same people that are going to say, no, well, it's not safe yet. No, why so soon? You know what I mean? They've been manipulated into the point where you trust the government the whole way up until they say, all right, it's over, and now you don't trust them all of a sudden, right? Like, are we
Exactly.
under the impression? Do you think that in 8 days the same people who trusted the government the whole time are going to keep trusting it and say, all right, it's safe now, and then throw the mask away? No way. They're going to be like, well, I'll just wait until to see if the case rate drops, and they're going to keep watching
Yeah.
the news, and it's going to be a mess, bro. These people are idiots.
The government told you all along and you trusted them, but now it's too soon. And this
Yeah.
is saying that the government will still have to wear their masks until June 23rd. Imagine being this cucked that you're supposed to be a conservative parliament member and you're just going to wear the mask April, May, June, 3 months longer than everybody else has to. And this news article has emojis on it. Global news sucks. I'm going to say it right now. Like, they're better as like a TV channel. Cool. That's what I never understood, really. Why do so many TV channels need to have a news broadcast? It's like they needed to have an outlet for propaganda. Like in Canada, there is Global Television, which has global news. That used to be just like a channel that would have regular TV shows, sometimes copy the sports. Then we have CTV, which is like steals a lot of CBS shows, and they have CTV News. It's just like why does CBS need news? Why does NBC need news? Because they found something that gets ratings, and it's a way to put across what they want to put across. It's kind of weird. Like, imagine if like Nickelodeon just came in with a news broadcast or something, or like Fox the same way. Imagine if like what other channels? History Channel, just like history news at 9. And we just have a flagship, like we're a television station, but now we just have news. Like, that's how I kind of see it. But
What
it
was that
actually worked in reverse,
publication?
I think.
What was that publication? The guy, the Canadian newspaper, and he went down to Florida, and he was all scared about the people who don't wear masks. What was that? Do you remember the name of that publication? Remember that story from a couple weeks ago?
I do remember that, but I don't remember. It might have been CTV. I'm not sure.
But so that's the type of guy, right? Who's not gonna. He trusted the government the whole time, But now when they say, all right, it's over, that is the exact person who's going to say, no, well, I'm not doing it yet. Even though they will scream at me for saying, oh, how dare you take the mask off? How come you never wore the mask? You're not a doctor. But now that the turns have tabled or whatever,
The
he
turns
doesn't.
have tabled? What?
Yeah. You know, there's that old office
Did you?
meme where
Is
he's
that
like, well, he says now how the turn
Okay.
tables or whatever, but
I
that's the guy who's
don't get
not
the
gonna.
reference.
I'm sorry, okay, I may have butchered the joke, but the point is
That's
that's
fine.
the
As long as
same
you didn't
guy.
think that's what it actually was, then I'm fine with it.
No, well, it's a deep cut office reference, but anyways,
Okay.
that is the guy who would scream at us and say, "You're not a doctor." That is the guy from the Dana White clip who screams and says, "Are you a doctor?"
Mhm.
But now they are somehow overriding the quote unquote experts and saying, "Well, I'm going to keep it on," and mostly because even though it was never supposed to be political, they will now tell you, "I'm going to keep it on because I don't want people to think I'm a Republican." Like that's happening out there.
Oh man. I found some random story looking before on my phone that I wanted to show just because it came up and it seemed ridiculous. Woman 21 lured Las Vegas man to motel, blindfolded him, stabbed him in the neck as revenge against a U.S. drone strike that killed the Iranian leader. So when Trump was in power and they drone striked the Iranian military guy in 2020, this girl has waited 2 years to lure somebody through, what was the website? Plenty of Fish, I believe. Yeah, there it is. And then lured him to the Sunset Station Hotel in Henderson, Nevada. We're gonna have to look up population of Henderson, Nevada. Can't be that big.
I think that's just
And
right outside of Las Vegas. I think, right? Like,
oh, okay, I don't know. So she blindfolded him, turned the lights off, then stabbed him in the side of the neck. Felt a pain in the side of his neck, he said. The man pushed her off of him, then ran out the 14th floor hotel room to call the police around 10:30 that night. She also ran out of the room and told a hotel employee that she just stabbed a man, which is an interesting immediate confession. She stabbed the man as revenge for the death of Qasem Soleimani, who was killed during a drone strike January 3rd, 2020. She advised that there are just injustices, in particular the killing of Qasem Soleimani in Iran. She stated she wanted revenge. That is wild.
yeah, that I'm
2 years later, Eric.
But what does she know about this man? Was he just a random guy? I mean, what did he have to do with anything?
It didn't. Maybe she found a guy that was like pro Trump or something. She was a third-year student, a junior varsity coach she was on the debate team. She's scheduled to report preliminary hearing in March, but no, I'm guessing she must have found like some pro-Trump guy or something like that. Somebody she thought was a redneck, and she's 21, and she's stabbing dudes in the neck, Eric.
Dude,
what were you doing at 21? How many people did you stab in 2008?
Absolutely nobody, bro. Absolutely nobody.
Wow.
I was
You're not trying then.
I was probably at 21 I was in San Francisco probably smoking a joint somewhere, like
Wow.
doing college things, like smoking a joint in the
homeless
park
guy.
or drinking I don't even know what we used to do
Drinking
in
something
college,
out
bro.
of a paper bag.
Yeah, in the
black
park.
guys do.
Yeah. No, I mean, like that
What's
reminds
with
me of
that? Is that
when
to
Pete.
just conceal it?
Well, it's the stupidest thing. I think it's meant to, like, because you can't have an open container. But do you remember when Pete Buttigieg went to the Bronx to talk to those two comedians, and they drank booze out of a brown paper bag because he was really trying to get hip with the black folks back when Pete was campaigning. But yeah, I don't know. This is that's the first I'm hearing of this story, and I don't know if is that TDS or is that just a regular mental illness. Who knows, bro? Like that lady. I feel sorry for the guy too. He's like probably desperate. He's on these weird dating apps. Plenty of Fish too. Yeah, there it is. Classic.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah. And those two guys, for the record, they used to be funny. Those two comedians are like a classic case of when they were independent, just like just doing their own thing on Twitter and YouTube. They were actually funny, and they got signed to Showtime, I believe, and just completely dropped off and just took all the bait, took all the talking points, all the left wing, you know, things that they had to say to remain in Hollywood, and ditched all their real funny
As you
stuff.
will.
So it's really sad. But this also just really quickly reminds me of that old Seinfeld episode when George gets lured into the hotel room off the train.
She steals all his clothes.
She doesn't stab him, but I think she steals the $8 from his wallet, and
That'd be a much darker episode.
and takes his clothes. Yeah,
George gets stabbed.
and this guy, he didn't die though. She didn't kill him, if I understand that correctly.
I don't think so. It's a pretty bad stab in the neck if you didn't kill somebody, but who am I? I wanted to talk to you about that show I've been watching about the origins of hip hop. I was telling my girlfriend about it, and it ended up me talking for like an hour. It turns out, Eric, that every city in the South started by just copying one type of music. I watched one about Houston. I watched one about Atlanta, Memphis, and then even got up to Pharrell in Virginia, and New Orleans, of course. And I think the first thing I mentioned to you was like they're interviewing a bunch of cross dressers right away. So I skipped all of that and went to the Master P and
dude, I think I have to
Cash
rewatch.
Money
I think I
Millionaires.
saw it, but I might
It's
need
like
to
season
rewatch
4 it
this.
started me on for some reason. But it's so crazy, like the way Lil Jon started everything in his city, and then
Wait, but what if the
3
cross
6
dressers
Mafia
though? What is
started
the
everything. For some
what's-
reason in New Orleans, they acted like these were influential people whose opinions that were needed. And I was
and
just thinking, like, in like 1992, these guys were probably getting beaten up. Like, I'm not seeing too much acceptance of transgenders in the hood in 1992.
But the documentary itself it's a couple years old, right? Like,
I think
so
so. Yeah, 2020.
oh, okay. So it's okay. It's not that old. I was under the impression that the documentary itself would have like sort of predated the heavy transgender push, but perhaps I'm wrong on
Not
that.
New Orleans. So a bunch of the music that came out in New Orleans actually comes from funerals. So apparently in New Orleans, you have like almost like a parade for a funeral. And the first line, I believe they called it, is like, the family members and everybody who's mourning. And then the second line is people at the back, and they're just marching and celebrating because of their, like, I don't know if it was from voodoo or what it was, or Haitian culture, that they wanted funerals to be more of a celebration. But the back part of the funeral procession, anyone can join, and it's supposed to be a party. And so people are banging drums, they're playing anything, they're getting drunk, and that's literally where twerking came from. And this guy who does the documentary is interviewing this woman who has to be 70 years old, and she starts twerking. She's like, you do it in the front, and she's toothless. You do it in the front, you do it in the back, you just shake it. And it's like, this is insane how their music, like in this music scene, started in funerals. And
Is that where the meme comes from? Like where the guys are dancing, carrying the casket? No, that's a different.
No, I think that's like Nigeria or something.
Okay.
But it's just crazy. And then Master P took a song, and people just, like, a lot of these places, there's like one song and people just like copy it. Like there was one beat that someone used in one, I think it was in New Orleans. There's one beat that they got from some person, and this song became so popular. And literally every song for like a couple years was just the same beat. And this one guy did like 6 or 8 versions of the same beat, and he would just say a different phrase in a different version. It's really weird. It's really interesting at the same time. And Master P's first song that he came out with was about all the different neighborhoods in New Orleans, and they call them wards for some reason. I'm guessing it's because voting wards. So he's like, I wrote this song about all these different wards, and like Ward 2 this and Ward 3 that, and it was supposed to be a song where everybody could get together because they're all hearing what they're hearing the neighborhoods. But apparently, all the song did was make people bust out in gang fights. Every time the song came on, there was giant brawls. So this show is insane. Like in
How many do you know how many episodes there are?
It's 4 seasons. For some reason it suggested for me to start on the 4th season. So I've been through New Orleans, Houston, which is like Paul Wall and DJ Screw. Virginia, which is Pharrell.
Timbaland's from Virginia too.
Timbaland and Pharrell grew up together.
Oh,
They're
I
like
actually
good
did
friends.
not know.
And
Really?
and then
I didn't know that.
And Timbaland and Missy Elliott were together from the beginning, which is really weird. But apparently 3-6 Mafia was so popular that and DJ Paul said this was a fact that people wouldn't switch over to CD until they did, because everything on cassette. All these cities have something in common where like it was all about DJs pushing music via like cassette mixtapes. So it's crazy. And then like the 3-6 Mafia scene, they started like the horrorcore genre, and like everybody in the club would like dance around in a circle, which is really weird. Like guys in jerry curls all dancing in a circle. These stories are just wild, man, and it's so similar. Like they didn't care about any other music scenes except for their own. And like, and the last thing I'll say, one of the funniest thing is hearing Lil Jon and the East Side Boys talk about how nobody knew what skeet meant. And I remember this at the time, that like it wasn't censored and everybody was saying it, and they show like them performing it at the MTV Awards, and they're just like, no, these white people are saying skeet, 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 and they have no idea what it means. And I remember the moment when that started getting censored on the radio, once, you know, like industry started figuring out what that word meant, which
Figuring
we
it
won't
out
say on here.
Well, I also remember when people were using the phrase "tiggle bitties," and then as a way to avoid the censorship, right? So you couldn't say big old titties, but you could say tig old bitties. But naturally, it took only like 6 weeks for the industry to catch on and say, "Oh no, you can't say that either." And then those got censored. I remember, as long as we're talking about censorship, I can remember there was a point, and if I'm remembering this correctly, it was actually a Timbaland song where they censored the word fart. Like he had rhymed something with the word fart, and that didn't come on the air on the
Nice.
radio, which is just hilarious. And to sort of bring it full circle, it is a little bit reminiscent of what we're seeing now, right? I mean, there are things that you can't say online that were fine. I mean, you could have said the words fraud and election in the same sentence in December of 2018. It would have been no problem. But then as time moves along, it takes on a meaning that you're not allowed to think. You know, you're now considered in the you're wrong. You can't think that would never be possible. So now they censor things that are just regular words. Well, biddy is not even a real word, but I digress. It's just weird to see the evolution of some of the censorship that's gone on.
Well, isn't it interesting that if you went on CNN and talked about election fraud, all they would do is, you know, probably cut you off. They wouldn't have you on again. And that would be the worst thing that can happen. That's the worst thing that comes out of that, is them calling you crazy or something. You can say anything you want like that on TV, but if you do it on social media, you'll be banned. Or it's like, it's supposed to be this marketplace for everybody, but you say something that's unapproved and you'll get banned. But you can go and say it on a private like network on television that's broadcast to everybody, and nothing bad, your life is not going to be ruined. You'll just, you know, they just won't like you. Whereas
Well,
you say it on,
you could say Stacey Abrams was robbed. There was fraud in that election, and she should have won. And she's rightfully the governor of Georgia, and that would be fine. But you could not replace the name Stacey Abrams with Donald Trump. You will be banned.
well, yeah, it's the Trump podcast on the Nelk Boys getting banned, and I knew it was going to happen because he's talked about nothing. Like he had a big long thing about fraud on that, and I was like, well, this is getting pulled. Imagine if it was on purpose. 8D chess, 38 2D chess.
But okay, just really quick on the Nelk Boys thing. Still haven't watched it. I'm under the assumption it could just be you could just watch it directly on their website or Vimeo or
Yeah.
whatever. But wouldn't you think that YouTube would just enjoy the traffic? I mean, 5 million views in less than 24 hours. That sort of traffic they would probably appreciate on almost anything else. Like you could
Yeah, but
say anything else.
you got to think about how small that is in YouTube terms. Like that guy Mr. Beast was on Rogan the other day, and he's got like 6 channels that are pulling in like 1 million views a day. So, and he was just talking about how much he loves YouTube and how it's amazing. You got like Brazilian YouTubers and PewDiePie. Like in the grand scheme of how many hundreds of billions of views per day, 6 million views from guys who are right wing supporters of Trump and everything are not going to dent them at all. So what I think Nelk should do is they should shop around to Rumble and, all these other sites and be like, listen, pay us a fat sack of cash and we will bring this gigantic young audience to your platform.
Yeah, and
It
they're
could be
they're
number
out
one
there.
on Rumble tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, and they're out there hanging out with Snoop Dogg. I saw they're doing pushing that Happy Dad beer or seltzer, whatever
Yeah.
they have. And I guess I'm just naive to the fact that you would think, regardless of, I mean, Trump's not president anymore. It doesn't really matter. You would think YouTube would just say, you know what, let's enjoy it. We'll pump out some of these ads. We could put Build Back Better Joe Biden ads in between a Trump interview, and that would be at least get to those 5 million, or I guess 10 million eyes for if everybody has two of them. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is they are so loyal to their political overlords that they will, even if the 5 million views in less than a day is a drop in the bucket for them, that adds up, bro. Like, you would think they would still want that, and but they are that loyal to the point where it is worth it to lose that revenue, lose those viewers, all the fans. I assume that the Nelk Boys audience, like, I've heard of them. I'm not like a big fan. I don't tune into them regularly, but I've seen some of their pranks on YouTube. They're actually hilarious, right? So you would think they would still want that base of people just from a business perspective, but it is more beneficial for them to get rid of those people and appease their political overlords than to have a decent business model. And that's actually the scariest part, is that they don't care about the money. They truly don't, because their weirdo ideology is more important to them. And that's crazy to me, because this is still, last I checked, YouTube was still an American company that still needed to make money, but they are clearly being compensated greater by their political overlords than just continuing to run a business properly. It's insane.
Yeah, it all changed when Trump came into office. All of a sudden, the ideology mattered because it was slipping away from them. Thank you for watching our ideology on Unauthorized Opinions, featuring Andrew Butler and Eric Chapados, an amalgamation of us as one being. As you can see, I've got this USA basketball hat from the Dream Team. I watched the documentary. I buy a Michael Jordan Funko Pop. You know what I bought yesterday, Eric? A White Man Can't Jump Woody Harrelson Funko Pop, just because of how hilarious that is.
And they're coming out with they're rebooting it as well with Jack Harlow.
Oh no, please.
Yeah. Yep. So
who's gonna play it? What if Wesley Snipes still played himself?
I don't know who's gonna. It's probably gonna be like it's a great question. I don't know who's gonna play
Smollett.
That would
why then Jack Harlow? He's not an actor. He's not a basketball player. I know he thinks he can play basketball. He plays in celebrity games, but he's not one. Well, he's not even an actor. So like,
he's the hottest rapper out right now, or he's at least the hottest white rapper out right now, right?
Well, when he was in this Lil Nas X music video in like a gay prison, I kind of lost a lot of respect for him. So
yeah, that was super
what are you
cringe.
Thinking? Like I'm not saying I'm not saying to dislike gay people. There's no problem with that. But like, where like you want me to be you want to be credible here, and like I don't know. I'll just end up getting myself in trouble here. But,
well, he just wanted to. I mean, he's on. Jack Harlow has no stake in standing up for anything. He's the epitome of. I mean, him. Think about it. Him and Lil Nas X. They are the picture of the industry plants, right? They are the flagship of the brainwashing tools that are meant to trick young kids into believing crazy things, like Lil Nas X, Jack Harlow, all those. Like Jack Harlow, I'm sure he would jump at the opportunity to make a TikTok for the White House. And also, just really quick, it's hilarious too now that the White House is briefing TikTokers on the conflict in Ukraine because they don't want them to spew anything that's outside of the approved message. But yeah, it's a mess, bro. We got a mess on our hands, and there's no end in sight.
All right, we should be back next week with a special guest, hopefully. and another special announcement, I think, as well. And it's a lot of special things, a lot of special needs. We will see you guys next week.
Shout out to the chat.
What?
Looks like the chat was. No, I'm just saying. Shout out to the chat. There was like a bunch of people in there. I don't know.
I think
typing
it was
the letter.
just
The letter
yeah,
Z.
I think it
don't
was
know
just
what
one guy on 65 accounts. It's better than that time where a guy was just calling me fat on 65 accounts.
And trying to get feet pics
Yeah.
or whatever. All right, fair enough.
We
Buy my
all
book
want my
also.
feet pics.
Gotta buy my book.
Right there, right there. Like my wrist doesn't turn that way. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, Dr. Nick.
Turn it up, Jordan.